Everyone struggles with laziness at some point. Some days it's hard to get out of bed, some days it's hard to start a single task, and some days it feels like nothing is worth the effort. Laziness isn't a permanent part of who you are. It's a habit, and like any habit, it can be changed. The truth is, small choices every day decide whether you stay stuck or move forward. You can take control of your mornings, your focus, your energy, and your routines in a way that makes action easier and progress natural. This audiobook is a step-by-step guide to helping you do exactly that. You'll discover how to start your day with energy, build habits that stick, eliminate distractions, and set clear goals that you can actually achieve. You'll learn how to strengthen your mind, manage your time, and create routines that take the stress out of making decisions. You'll also explore the power of supportive relationships, tracking your progress, and reflecting weekly to keep momentum going. By the end of this audiobook, you'll have practical strategies that you can apply immediately. You'll know how to stay consistent, push through resistance, and make progress every single day. If you've ever felt stuck, unmotivated, or frustrated with your own lack of action, this guide will help you take control and transform how you live. This is not about motivation that comes and goes. This is about building a life where action becomes natural and laziness becomes optional. Chapter 15: Conquer Morning Inertia by creating a reliable daily start. Morning is the first test of discipline each day. It is the moment when intention meets reality. Many people promise themselves they will become productive, focused, and consistent. Yet the true battle begins the moment the alarm rings. The body feels heavy. The mind searches for excuses. Comfort whispers that a few more minutes of sleep will not matter. This quiet struggle in the early hours often determines the direction of the entire day. Laziness is rarely about lack of ability. It is often about lack of structure. When the day begins without a clear system, the mind drifts. Decisions become slow. Energy spreads in too many directions. A person who wins the morning builds an advantage before the world even becomes loud. A person who loses the morning spends the rest of the day trying to recover lost focus. A reliable daily start is not about perfection. It is about consistency. The goal is not to wake up feeling excited every day. The goal is to wake up and follow a simple structure even when motivation feels low. Discipline begins when action continues without emotional excitement. The mind learns through repetition. When the same actions happen each morning, the brain begins to accept them as normal behavior. Morning inertia happens because the brain protects energy. During sleep, the body enters a state of rest. The transition from rest to activity requires effort. Without a clear plan, the mind delays this effort. The body remains still because no strong reason pushes it forward. Creating a reliable daily start solves this problem by removing the need for decision-making. A person who prepares the morning routine in advance reduces resistance. When actions are already planned, the mind follows a path instead of searching for one. This reduces confusion and increases momentum. Momentum is powerful. Once the first action is completed, the second action becomes easier. Soon the body is fully awake and the day begins with direction. The first practical step is controlling the wake-up moment. Many people press the snooze button repeatedly. Each time the alarm stops and restarts, the brain becomes confused. Sleep cycles restart and break again. This creates grogginess and mental fog. A strong morning begins with a single clear wake-up decision. Place the alarm away from the bed. This simple action forces the body to stand up. Once the body is standing, returning to deep sleep becomes difficult. The physical movement signals the brain that the day has begun. Keep the alarm sound simple but firm. Avoid soft sounds that blend into sleep. A clear sound encourages immediate action. Standing up is the first victory of the day. It may feel small, yet small victories build confidence. When the brain experiences early success, it becomes more willing to continue working. Success builds momentum. Momentum builds discipline. After standing up, expose the eyes to natural or bright light. Light tells the brain that it is time to become alert. Open a window if possible. Step outside for a few minutes. If natural light is not available, turn on bright indoor lighting. This reduces sleep hormones and increases mental clarity. Hydration is another important action. During sleep, the body loses water through breathing and natural processes. Dehydration increases fatigue and slows thinking. Drinking a glass of water within the first few minutes of waking improves energy and focus. It also signals the body to begin daily activity. Movement should follow quickly. The body does not require an intense workout to wake up. Simple stretching or light exercise activates blood flow. Walk around the room. Stretch the arms and legs. Perform a few push-ups or bodyweight movements. Even 5 minutes of movement can shift the body from rest to readiness. Many people believe they need motivation before they act. In reality, action creates motivation. When the body moves, energy increases. When energy increases, the mind becomes more willing to continue. Waiting for motivation delays progress. Acting first creates motivation naturally. A reliable morning also requires mental clarity. The mind wakes up with many thoughts. Some are useful while others create stress or distraction. Taking a few minutes for quiet reflection helps organize these thoughts. Sit in a calm space, breathe slowly and deeply. Observe thoughts without rushing. This moment of calm strengthens awareness. Instead of reacting to every thought, the mind learns to observe and choose. This skill is essential for discipline. A person who controls attention controls behavior. Reflection does not need to be complex. Even 5 minutes of quiet breathing can reset the mind. Writing is another powerful morning practice. A simple notebook can guide the mind toward clarity. Write down the main goals for the day. Focus on 3 important tasks. These tasks should move life forward in a meaningful way. Avoid creating long lists that create pressure. A short, clear list builds confidence. When the mind knows exactly what needs to be done, resistance decreases. Confusion often creates laziness. The brain avoids tasks when the path is unclear. Clear written goals remove this barrier. The day begins with purpose rather than uncertainty. Nutrition also affects morning energy. A balanced breakfast can support mental performance. Choose foods that provide steady energy. Protein, healthy fats, and whole grains help stabilize blood sugar. Avoid excessive sugar that creates a quick spike followed by fatigue. Eating slowly and mindfully strengthens awareness and appreciation. Technology is one of the greatest threats to a focused morning. Many people reach for their phones immediately after waking. Messages, news, and social media flood the mind with information. This shifts attention away from personal goals. Instead of directing the day, the mind begins reacting to outside noise. Create a rule that protects the first hour of the morning. Keep the phone away from the bed. Do not open social media during the early routine. This quiet period allows the mind to build strength before facing the demands of the world. Attention is a valuable resource. Guard it carefully. A reliable daily start also requires preparation the night before. Morning discipline begins in the evening. When the next day is prepared in advance, the morning becomes simple. Lay out clothes. Prepare the workspace. Write down the next day's priorities. These small actions reduce friction when the alarm rings. Sleep quality also determines morning strength. Discipline is difficult when the body is exhausted. Create a regular sleep schedule. Go to bed at the same time each night when possible. Reduce screen exposure before sleep. Keep the sleeping environment dark and quiet. Quality sleep restores mental and physical energy. Another powerful strategy is attaching meaning to the morning routine. When actions feel meaningless, motivation fades. Remind the mind why discipline matters. A productive morning supports long-term goals. It builds confidence and independence. Each early action becomes a vote for the person one wants to become. Visualizing the future can strengthen commitment. Imagine the version of life that exists after months or years of consistent discipline. Imagine waking up with confidence and control. Imagine the respect that grows from reliable behavior. This vision creates emotional strength during moments of resistance. Progress takes time. The brain needs repetition to build new habits. The first days of a new routine may feel uncomfortable. The body resists change. The mind searches for familiar comfort. Continue the routine anyway. Consistency teaches the brain that the new behavior is permanent. Do not measure success only by feelings. Measure success by actions completed. Even on difficult mornings, completing the routine builds discipline. Over time, the effort required decreases. What once felt difficult becomes automatic. Accountability can also strengthen the morning routine. Share goals with a trusted friend or mentor. Report progress regularly. Knowing that someone else is aware of the commitment increases responsibility. Humans respond strongly to social expectations. Another helpful strategy is tracking progress. Use a simple calendar or journal. Mark each day the routine is completed. Watching a chain of successful mornings grow builds pride. Breaking the chain becomes difficult because the mind values the visible progress. Rewarding effort can also support habit formation. The reward does not need to be large. It could be a moment of relaxation after completing the routine. It could be enjoying a favorite drink or music. Rewards reinforce positive behavior in the brain. Challenges will appear. Some mornings will feel heavy. Illness, stress, or poor sleep may interfere. Discipline does not require perfection. When a routine breaks, return to it the next day without self-criticism. Progress continues through persistence rather than guilt. Over time, the morning routine becomes a source of strength. The body begins waking up naturally before the alarm. The mind expects movement and clarity. Confidence grows because the day begins with victory rather than hesitation. This transformation affects every part of life. A strong morning improves work performance. It improves health and relationships. It builds a quiet sense of control. A person who directs the first hour of the day learns to direct many other areas of life. The greatest benefit of conquering morning inertia is the shift in identity. The mind stops seeing itself as lazy or undisciplined. Instead, it begins to see a person who acts with intention. Identity shapes behavior. When the mind believes discipline is normal, consistent action follows naturally. Each sunrise offers a new opportunity to practice this principle. The world outside may remain unpredictable. Challenges will appear without warning, yet the first hour of the day can remain stable and controlled. This stability becomes a foundation for resilience. The alarm rings. The body stands. Light enters the eyes. Water refreshes the body. Movement awakens strength. Quiet reflection clears the mind. Written goals provide direction. Each step flows into the next. Momentum builds naturally. Through this simple sequence, the day begins with order instead of chaos. Energy flows toward meaningful work rather than distraction. Confidence grows because promises made to oneself are kept. Morning discipline is not reserved for extraordinary people. It is built through ordinary actions repeated daily. Anyone willing to stand up when the alarm rings and follow a clear routine can transform the direction of their life. A reliable daily start becomes a quiet promise kept every morning. That promise says that comfort will not control the day. That promise says that effort will guide behavior. Over weeks and months, this promise becomes character. Laziness loses power when structure replaces hesitation. Morning inertia fades when action becomes automatic. The simple act of starting the day with intention builds a foundation for long-term growth. Every sunrise is a chance to practice strength. Each morning routine is a step toward mastery of the self. Through consistent effort, the first hour of the day becomes a powerful ally in the journey toward discipline and meaningful achievement. Chapter 2. Build unbreakable habits through small, consistent, daily focused actions. Habits are not grand revolutions that arrive overnight, but careful changes made again and again until new behavior becomes the new normal. Start by choosing one habit that matters most right now and commit to practicing it in a form so small that it feels almost trivial. Reduce the action until resistance disappears, and the only real question left is whether the action will be done at all. When the required effort is tiny, the mind stops arguing and movement becomes possible. Pick one clear trigger for the habit and attach the new action to that trigger so the cue and the response form a reliable pair. Decide precisely when and where the habit will occur by using a simple plan written in the format, "When X happens, I will do Y." Make that plan specific and short and place it somewhere visible until it no longer needs to be read. The 2-minute approach is powerful because it forces forward motion without depending on willpower. If the habit is to exercise, then begin with 2 minutes of movement. If the habit is reading, then open a book and read one paragraph or one page. If the habit is journaling, then write a single sentence. The point is to build a chain of action rather than waiting for a surge of motivation. Frequency forms memory, and memory builds automatic response. Small, repeated actions leave neural trails that grow stronger each day until the pattern requires little conscious thought. Design the environment to favor the habit rather than fight it. Place the tools of the habit within reach and remove obvious obstacles. If the goal is to practice language learning, then keep flashcards where they will be seen. If the aim is to cook healthier meals, then make sure basic ingredients are already prepared or easy to access. When the environment nudges behavior toward the desired action, the brain saves energy and the habit survives friction that would otherwise stop it. Use habit stacking to attach new practices to routines that already exist. Identify a solid habit you never miss and add the new tiny action immediately after it. The existing routine acts as an anchor, and the new action piggybacks on established neural patterns. Choose anchors that are consistent and not dependent on mood. Anchors can be things like sitting down for a cup of tea or closing a work file. Once the new action has repeated sufficiently, it will feel like the natural next step. Track progress in a tangible way and make the measurement simple. Marking an X on a calendar or placing a pebble in a jar creates visible proof of consistency. Visual evidence of repeated action motivates more than abstract intentions. Create a streak and protect it. The desire to avoid breaking a visible chain becomes more persuasive than occasional bursts of inspiration. Keep the tracking tool easy and immediate so it becomes part of the habit rather than additional work. Create a clear reward that follows completion of the habit. The reward need not be indulgent or large. A brief moment of recognition or a small pleasurable action reinforces the behavior in the brain. Alternate the type of rewards occasionally so the brain does not stop responding because of predictability. Small, consistent reinforcement signals the brain that the new pattern is worth preserving. Frame the habit around identity rather than outcome. Replace statements about what you want with statements about who you want to become. Saying, "I am a consistent writer," is stronger than "I want to write a book," because the identity claim influences every small decision. Act in ways that confirm the identity. When choices appear, ask which option supports the person you claim to be. Over time, the repeated choices shape self-perception, and the perception then shapes behavior with less conscious effort. Use implementation intentions to prepare for obstacles before they happen. Consider likely interruptions and create if-then responses, such as, "If I miss my scheduled time, then I will practice for 5 minutes later the same day." Preparing in advance reduces decision fatigue at the moment of crisis and prevents small setbacks from becoming abandonment. The capacity to recover quickly marks the difference between a lasting habit and a short-lived attempt. Make public commitments when possible. Tell a trusted friend or declare the goal to a small group committed to personal growth. Social expectations increase the cost of giving up and provide encouragement when needed. Pair public commitment with accountability check-ins and honest updates. Knowing that someone else will ask about progress sharpens focus and creates additional motivation to maintain the behavior. Measure frequency rather than perfection. It is more important to do the habit regularly than to do it perfectly. A simple daily minimum is far more effective than sporadic long sessions. Consistent short practices accumulate into compound improvement, while infrequent intense efforts usually fade. Set a clear frequency target and defend that baseline before expanding scope or intensity. Scale slowly and intentionally once the habit has stabilized. Add time or difficulty by a small percentage rather than by dramatic leaps. This gradual increase prevents overwhelm and avoids reintroducing resistance that had already been tamed. If the habit is to run, then add small distance increments. If the habit is to study, then add an extra page rather than an hour. Gradual growth preserves momentum and builds durable capacity. Practice temptation bundling to attach pleasure to discipline. Pair a habit you resist with an activity you enjoy, but only allow the enjoyable activity after the habit is completed. This converts immediate reward into a tool for reinforcement and shifts the balance between short-term desire and long-term gain. Over weeks, the original resistance often decreases and the habit becomes its own reward. Keep the plan visible and review it regularly. Once a week, spend a short session evaluating what worked and what did not. Adjust triggers, rewards, or timing based on simple evidence. When a habit stalls, change one variable and observe the result. Tiny iterative improvements compound over time and prevent stagnation. Avoid wholesale redesigns that complicate rather than clarify. Anticipate plateaus and create a relapse strategy that is non-judgmental and focused on restart. Expect days when life interferes with practice. Place a rule that a single missed day is not a failure, and that the morning after a miss, the first aim is to resume the habit, even if only in its smallest form. A compassionate recovery plan keeps momentum alive and avoids the trap of all or nothing thinking. Use deliberate reflection to deepen understanding of why the habit matters. Spend a few moments each month answering the question, what has this habit changed in my life? Connecting small daily actions to meaningful long-term benefits strengthens commitment by creating emotional weight behind the routine. When the why is clear, the how becomes easier to endure. Leverage the power of timers and focused sessions. Work in short, concentrated bursts, and then take a brief pause. This pattern helps sustain attention and prevents exhaustion. Use simple intervals that fit your life and adjust as necessary. The goal is sustainable persistence, not heroic intensity. Remove decision friction wherever possible. Pre-decide details, such as the exact time, duration, the location, and the first action. The fewer choices the brain must make at the moment, the less likely it is to avoid action. Prepare materials and space in advance so starting feels natural and quick. Be mindful of identity drift and guard against letting small failures redefine who you are. When a lapse occurs, describe it as a temporary interruption and not evidence of character failure. Language matters. Use neutral, factual descriptions of what happened and move forward with an accessible plan to resume consistent action. Celebrate consistency not only with rewards, but with recognition of competence. Acknowledge the discipline shown and what it reveals about your capacity to improve. Small celebrations increase morale and make continued practice more likely. Praise focused on effort, not talent, reinforces the belief that improvement results from action. When motivation wanes, re-examine the simplicity of the habit and return to its smallest form. Often the urge to quit comes from trying to hold too much at once. Reduce the task to its minimal expression and build the frequency back up. This economy of effort protects long-term consistency. Finally, connect the habit to a larger life purpose so it no longer feels isolated. Link daily practice to meaningful outcomes such as health, longevity, relationships, or contribution. When small actions are understood as steps toward a life that matters, they take on new significance. Habits formed this way carry the weight of values and thus endure far beyond fleeting enthusiasm. Start today with one tiny action, choose a clear trigger, prepare the environment, and track each repetition. Over time, the accumulation of small, focused actions constructs an unbreakable pattern. The aim is not temporary achievement, but the slow transformation of daily behavior into character. Consistent small steps build a life shaped by intention and steady progress. Chapter 3D: Eliminate distraction and design a productive, uncluttered work environment. The space where work happens directly shapes the way work happens, so create surroundings that invite attention and make distraction costly. Start by defining a single purpose for your workspace and keep it dedicated to that activity whenever possible. If the location is used for multiple roles, identify a primary function and remove objects that suggest other roles during work periods. Clear surfaces of unrelated items so the eye and mind do not wander toward tasks that are not important now. When the desk only shows tools for the task, it communicates a simple message to the brain, and the brain responds by focusing. Decide on one central workstation layout and arrange frequently used items within easy reach to reduce interruptions caused by searching. Store reference materials in a nearby shelf and keep consumables such as pens and notepaper in a small container instead of scattered across the surface. Use trays or shallow boxes to collect things that do not belong on the desk and empty them at set times so clutter does not accumulate. Fewer visual cues mean fewer mental cues, and that directly improves concentration. Remove electronic temptations by creating rules for device use during focused sessions. Turn off non-essential notifications and set your phone to do not disturb unless it is required for safety or work. Keep the phone in another room or in a drawer during deep work intervals, so it does not become a recurring source of attention theft. If splitting devices is possible, use one strictly for communication and another for work to prevent apps from competing for cognitive bandwidth. Control the browser and computer environment with the same discipline. Close tabs that are not necessary for the current task, and limit the number of open windows to what you can manage without anxiety. Use browser extensions that block distracting websites during scheduled focus periods, and create a separate browser profile for research and another for leisure. Organizing digital files into clear folders and using consistent naming conventions reduces time lost to searching and lessens the temptation to drift into non-productive screens. Adopt time blocking as a structural defense against distraction by assigning explicit windows for specific types of work. Protect these blocks as if they were appointments with an important person, because they are appointments with your future progress. In each block, define the single most important objective to be achieved and refuse to accept additional tasks until that objective is complete or the block ends. When interruptions arise, practice a standard script to postpone them and schedule responses for the next available slot. Design signal systems that communicate availability to others in shared spaces. A simple red flag or a closed door can be a powerful nonverbal message that the current time is reserved for focused work. Explain your boundaries to team members and family members and agree on minimal disruption protocols so expectations are clear. Consistent signals reduce the number of social decisions you must make and preserve energy for the work itself. Set up predictable rituals that begin and end each focus period to train attention through repetition. Start a session by clearing the desk, then writing a single task on a small card and placing it in front of you. End the session by noting one concrete result and closing the workspace or switching off the main device. Rituals turn start and stop moments into automatic transitions, so the mind spends less energy on deciding and more energy on performing. Make ergonomics a priority because physical discomfort is a steady, low-level distraction. Choose a chair and desk height that support an upright posture and place the monitor at eye level to avoid neck strain. Position the keyboard and mouse where the shoulders stay relaxed and the wrists remain straight. Comfortable working conditions lengthen the amount of time you can sustain attention without physical complaints becoming an excuse to stop. Control lighting to support alertness and reduce eye strain. Position the work surface so natural light falls across it rather than directly into your eyes to avoid glare. Use warm desk lighting in the evenings to signal the body toward winding down while favoring brighter illumination during active daytime hours. Consistent lighting helps regulate circadian rhythms and improves both comfort and focus. Simplify the visual field by choosing a neutral palette for the workspace and limiting decorative items. A single plant or one frame on the wall can add calm without creating multiple points of visual interest. When the environment is visually quiet, it becomes easier to follow a single chain of thought and to maintain continuity between moments of attention. Create a holding system for incoming tasks so they do not interrupt current work. Keep an inbox tray or a digital capture tool where new ideas and requests are placed immediately but not acted upon until a scheduled processing time. This reduces the impulsive urge to respond and allows you to maintain a higher average depth of attention. When capture is immediate, the mind is reassured that no important item will be lost, and it becomes less likely to demand immediate attention. Batch similar activities together to enjoy the efficiency of repetition and to limit context switching. Group phone calls into a single time block and handle email in 2 concise slots during the day instead of constantly checking. Context switching carries a cognitive cost that accumulates with each shift, and batching minimizes those costs while improving throughput. Use sound purposefully to support concentration. Some people thrive in silence, while others perform better with steady ambient noise or instrumental music. Experiment to find the auditory environment that enhances your focus and then standardize it for work sessions. Noise-canceling headphones can be an effective barrier in noisy environments, and a distinct soundscape can become a conditioned cue for focused activity. Adopt a minimalist approach to tools and software by selecting a few reliable applications and learning them deeply rather than collecting many that partially overlap. Complex tool stacks create cognitive friction and absorb attention in tool management rather than task completion. Choose software that integrates well and automate repetitive steps so the mind can stay on meaningful work. Implement a clear end-of-day routine to close the work loop and reduce mental residue. Spend the last few minutes of your workday organizing the workspace and listing the top priorities for the next session so the start is frictionless. A tidy finish helps prevent unfinished tasks from seeping into personal time and reinforces a boundary between work and rest. Create a weekly reset ritual to address accumulated mess and to plan for the week ahead. Use one designated period to file documents, clear downloads, and clean surfaces so maintenance does not become a daily distraction. Regular resets keep small problems from growing into chronic sources of friction. Be intentional about what you allow into your environment by applying a one-in, one-out rule for physical possessions. When a new item enters the workspace, remove one existing item. This practice keeps the total number of objects stable and prevents slow creep of clutter that undermines attention. Minimalism is not about deprivation, but about preserving capacity for what matters. Train attention with short, concentrated practices that improve the brain's ability to resist distraction. Simple exercises such as focused breathing or brief periods of single tasking can increase sustained attention over time. These practices are analogous to physical training and require consistent repetition to produce gains. Measure the effects of changes objectively by tracking work done rather than hours spent. Record clear outcomes for focus sessions and compare results after rearranging the environment. When choices about layout or rules lead to measurable improvements, keep them and iterate on less successful experiments. Data informs optimization and prevents emotional judgments from dictating the setup. Accept that perfection is impossible and design for resilience. Anticipate inevitable interruptions and create a quick recovery protocol that brings attention back to the task. Log the interruption briefly, then return to the work in small steps, such as rereading the last paragraph or summarizing the next 3 actions. Recovery speed matters more than the absence of interruptions. Share the principles of your environment with those who need to respect it, and teach others how to engage with your signals. Clear communication reduces accidental disruptions and fosters mutual respect for focused time. When others understand what is required, they can contribute to a culture that supports deep work rather than undermining it. Finally, commit to a simple experiment lasting 30 days where the goal is to reduce distractions incrementally and observe the impact on output. Make one change at a time and record the results so improvements stack logically. Small, consistent refinements to the workspace lead to large increases in productivity and to a calmer mind able to do better work with less struggle. Chapter 4C. Commit fully to clear goals with measurable monthly progress steps. Setting a clear destination changes everything about how time is spent, because a defined aim turns scattered effort into deliberate progress. Goals that remain vague rarely pull behavior in one direction and instead allow daily life to drift toward whatever is easiest. To commit fully, begin by choosing one meaningful objective that feels both important and attainable within a realistic time frame. Describe that objective in plain language and attach a measurable outcome so success is not a guess. Choose numbers, dates, or observable milestones so the target can be tracked without debate. Break the larger aim into monthly objectives that each represent a visible step forward. Monthly milestones are short enough to keep urgency alive and long enough to produce substantive work. For each month, write a single sentence that states the specific result expected by the end of that period. Keep these monthly statements actionable so progress can be measured with concrete evidence rather than vague impressions. When a goal is decomposed this way, the path forward becomes a sequence of manageable commitments rather than a single overwhelming demand. Define clear metrics for success at every stage. Metrics might be units produced, hours practiced, weight lifted, or pages written. Select indicators that directly reflect the behavior that leads to the outcome. Avoid metrics that are mere proxies with weak links to real improvement. When measurements clearly align with effort, it becomes simple to evaluate whether methods are working or need change. Create a visible progress system that updates weekly and summarizes monthly results. A simple chart, a spreadsheet, or a marked calendar provides immediate feedback about movement toward the goal. Visual cues reduce uncertainty because they replace speculation with recorded facts. When the same system is checked regularly, it becomes easier to spot trends and to adjust plans before small problems grow into major setbacks. Design weekly micro-plans that translate monthly milestones into daily tasks. Each week, decide on 3 core actions that will move the month forward and schedule them into specific time blocks. Assign a first action for each work session so the moment focus begins there is no ambiguity about what to do. Preparing a single clear starter task reduces hesitation and increases the chance the session will be productive. Guard the plan by limiting the number of simultaneous priorities. Multi-goal overload is the silent killer of progress because attention and energy are finite. Choose at most 2 primary goals to pursue in any month and place secondary ambitions on hold until the primary ones stabilize. Depth beats breadth when the objective is real change rather than the illusion of activity. Commitment is strengthened by publicly recorded intentions and regular accountability checks. Share monthly milestones with a mentor, a peer group, or a trusted friend and agree on a cadence for updates. External awareness creates a mild pressure that helps maintain follow-through and invites useful feedback when strategies stall. When accountability is paired with honest reporting, it becomes an instrument of clarity rather than a source of shame. Anticipate common obstacles and write contingency plans in advance. Identify the likely interruptions and decide how they will be handled without abandoning momentum. For example, when travel disrupts normal routines, specify an alternate minimum practice that preserves continuity. Preparing for expected friction reduces the time spent improvising and prevents avoidable lapses from becoming long-term derailments. Allocate resources deliberately by blocking time, money, and tools for the goal. Time that is not scheduled is unlikely to exist. Reserve recurring calendar slots for priority work and mark them as non-negotiable commitments. Budget for necessary materials and secure access to any people or systems that are needed. Treat resource allocation as part of commitment rather than an optional convenience. Adopt a decision rule for new opportunities that evaluates whether they support or distract from current milestones. When an attractive project appears, measure it against the monthly roadmap and the question of whether it will accelerate or dilute progress. Politely decline or delay opportunities that conflict with core objectives until the present sequence of milestones is complete. Develop a simple habit of weekly review that focuses on outcomes, not intentions. At the end of each week, list the concrete achievements, record any missed targets, and note one specific change to implement next week. Keep the review short, focused, and factual so it is sustainable. Small, consistent adjustments based on real results compound into significant advantage over months. Use time-bounded experiments to test methods that could increase efficiency. When trying a new approach, set a 2 or 4 week trial period with measurable criteria for success. If the experiment meets the criteria, adopt it permanently, and if it fails, discard it quickly. This scientific approach prevents heroic persistence in failing methods and encourages rapid learning. Build momentum by celebrating real progress in modest ways. Recognition does not have to be extravagant. A quiet personal acknowledgement, a small ritual, or a brief pause to mark the step taken reinforces the behavior that created it. Choose celebrations that support continued forward movement rather than undermine discipline. Keep language oriented toward identity as well as outcome. Frame statements about progress in terms of who is doing the work rather than only what is being achieved. Replace "I want to complete this project" with "I am someone who finishes important commitments." Identity-aligned language directs daily choices toward consistency and reduces the cognitive friction of decision-making. Limit perfectionism by setting minimum viable targets for each period. A minimum threshold ensures that work continues even when conditions are not ideal. Once the minimum is achieved, additional effort can follow, but the baseline prevents paralysis caused by waiting for ideal circumstances. Consistency under imperfect conditions is the true test of resilience. Protect the planning process by scheduling a monthly strategy session to re-examine priorities and adjust milestones. Use this time to compare actual performance against expectations to reallocate effort where it will matter most. Monthly strategy prevents slow drift away from meaningful objectives and keeps the work aligned with the life it is meant to improve. Use accountability technology selectively to remove friction in tracking. Shared documents, automated reminders, or simple habit apps can maintain momentum without creating extra administrative burden. Choose tools that increase clarity and reduce the mental overhead of remembering or organizing. When technology serves rather than distracts, it becomes a partner in persistence. Practice saying no firmly and respectfully to commitments that conflict with progress. Every yes given away reduces the capacity to honor a current milestone. Saying no is not rejection of people, but protection of the promise made to oneself. Use short, clear language that leaves less room for renegotiation and preserves the time needed for what matters most. Create a mechanism for fast recovery after setbacks. When a month does not meet its milestone, design a short, focused plan for the next period that addresses the single largest cause of failure. Avoid overcomplicated fixes and concentrate on re-establishing momentum with immediate achievable steps. Quick recovery preserves confidence and prevents minor failures from defining the overall trajectory. Keep the emotional contract with the goal honest by reminding yourself of the real reasons behind the commitment. When motivation dips, revisit the personal meaning of the objective and the life changes it supports. Meaning supplies a deeper and more enduring force than fleeting enthusiasm. Reconnecting to that source renews purpose and clarifies the willingness to endure necessary work. Balance intensity with recovery by scheduling deliberate downtime within the monthly plan. Rest is not optional because the brain and body need replenishment to sustain focused effort. Include short breaks weekly and a full reset day monthly so performance remains high and burnout is avoided. Measure progress in terms of capability growth and not only in immediate outputs. Over months, ask what skills, knowledge, or habits have improved as a result of the work and document those changes. Capability is a compound asset that continues to pay dividends long after a specific milestone is reached. Hold to the principle that commitment is demonstrated by consistent action rather than by emotional declarations. Real commitment shows up in the calendar, the resource allocation, and the willingness to do the work even when it is uncomfortable. Provide evidence of dedication through repeated execution. Finish each month by closing the loop with a short summary that records what was learned and what will change next month. This practice creates a bridge from progress to planning and makes the following period easier to begin. Over time, the monthly cycle of plan, act, review, and adjust forms a durable system that steadily converts intention into achievement. Chapter 5e. Cultivate mental resilience using planned challenges and steady reflection. Mental resilience grows when the mind learns how to remain steady under pressure instead of escaping from difficulty. Many people believe strength appears naturally when problems arrive, yet the truth is different. The mind becomes strong only through repeated exposure to manageable challenges. When life is always comfortable, the mind becomes fragile. The smallest obstacle then feels overwhelming. Resilience develops through intentional practice, where difficulty is introduced gradually and handled with awareness. A disciplined life includes moments of voluntary discomfort. This does not mean creating suffering for its own sake. It means training the mind to face effort without resistance. A person who occasionally chooses the harder path becomes familiar with struggle and therefore does not panic when struggle appears unexpectedly. Planned challenges prepare the mind for reality. Begin by introducing small challenges that stretch current limits without causing collapse. These challenges should be clear and measurable. Wake slightly earlier than usual and complete a short period of focused work before daily distractions begin. Take a walk even when the weather feels unpleasant. Finish an important task when the mind prefers rest. Each action sends a quiet message to the brain that discomfort is not dangerous. The goal of planned challenge is not punishment. The goal is adaptation. When the mind learns that effort leads to growth, it slowly changes its reaction to stress. Instead of withdrawing, it begins to engage. This shift transforms daily life because many problems become manageable once the fear of discomfort disappears. Choose challenges carefully and introduce them gradually. If the difficulty is too great, the mind will rebel and abandon the practice. If the challenge is too small, the mind will remain unchanged. The correct level creates slight tension that demands attention while still remaining achievable. This balance builds confidence through success. Physical discipline can be a powerful training ground for mental strength. Simple activities, such as controlled exercise or extended concentration tasks, teach patience and persistence. During these moments, the body may signal fatigue or resistance. Observe these signals without immediate reaction. Continue working steadily while maintaining calm breathing and controlled attention. The lesson during challenge is not merely endurance. The lesson is observation. Notice how thoughts appear when effort increases. The mind may create excuses. It may question the purpose of the activity. It may promise future effort in exchange for present comfort. Recognizing these mental patterns is essential because awareness weakens their influence. Once the challenge ends, spend a few minutes in reflection. Reflection is the second half of resilience training. Without reflection, the mind experiences effort but fails to extract wisdom from the experience. With reflection, the mind understands what happened internally and learns how to respond more effectively next time. Use a notebook or quiet moment of thought to examine the experience. Ask simple questions that reveal insight. What moment felt most difficult during the challenge? What thoughts appeared during that moment? How did the body react? What action allowed progress to continue despite discomfort? These questions transform a simple effort into a lesson about personal behavior. Reflection should remain calm and factual. Avoid harsh judgment or emotional criticism. The purpose is understanding rather than blame. When mistakes appear, treat them as information. Every failure provides useful feedback when examined honestly. Over time, reflection develops clarity about personal triggers and responses. Another valuable reflection practice is reviewing emotional reactions to daily events. Life regularly presents situations that provoke frustration or fear. Instead of ignoring these emotions, examine them carefully. Ask why the reaction occurred and whether it was necessary. Many emotional responses come from habit rather than true threat. When the mind studies its reactions, it begins to create distance between stimulus and response. This distance provides choice. Instead of reacting automatically, a resilient person pauses and selects a deliberate response. This pause may last only a few seconds, yet it represents enormous power. Mental resilience also requires acceptance of uncertainty. Many people suffer because they expect life to remain predictable and comfortable. When events change suddenly, the mind becomes overwhelmed. Resilient individuals understand that uncertainty is normal. They prepare themselves mentally for change rather than resisting it. One way to develop this acceptance is through controlled exposure to unfamiliar situations. Try learning a new skill that initially feels uncomfortable. Speak with people outside your usual social circle. Explore an environment that challenges your confidence. These experiences teach the mind to adapt quickly instead of withdrawing. Another powerful exercise involves temporary limitation of comfort. Occasionally choose a simpler lifestyle for a short period. Reduce unnecessary entertainment. Eat simple meals. Spend time working without constant convenience. These experiences remind the mind that happiness does not depend entirely on comfort. Through these exercises, the brain learns a critical lesson. Life remains manageable even when conditions become less pleasant. This knowledge creates quiet confidence. When difficult situations appear, the mind remembers previous experiences and understands that endurance is possible. Steady reflection should also include recognition of progress. Many individuals overlook improvement because they focus only on remaining weaknesses. During reflection, identify moments where resilience was demonstrated successfully. Perhaps a stressful conversation was handled calmly. Perhaps a demanding task was completed despite fatigue. Acknowledging these victories strengthens identity. The mind begins to see itself as capable of handling difficulty. This belief influences future behavior because expectations shape action. When the mind expects strength, it becomes more willing to face challenge. Resilience also grows through deliberate control of attention. During difficult moments, attention often becomes scattered between fear and frustration. Training the mind to return attention to the present task reduces emotional noise. Slow breathing can assist this process. Inhale deeply and focus on the movement of air. This simple action calms the nervous system and restores clarity. Another useful strategy is reframing difficulty as training rather than threat. When the mind views a challenge as an opportunity to strengthen character, the emotional response changes. Stress becomes meaningful rather than purely negative. This perspective does not remove difficulty, but it transforms the experience into purposeful effort. Consistent practice is essential. Resilience cannot be developed through occasional bursts of determination. The mind requires repeated exposure to challenge, followed by honest reflection. Over weeks and months, the internal response to difficulty changes gradually. Situations that once created anxiety begin to feel manageable. Social support can also strengthen resilience. Conversations with thoughtful individuals provide perspective during challenging times. Others may recognize strengths that the individual overlooks. They may also offer practical advice based on their own experiences. Honest dialogue reduces the feeling of isolation that often accompanies struggle. However, true resilience ultimately depends on personal responsibility. External encouragement can support growth, but it cannot replace inner discipline. Each person must choose how to respond when difficulty appears. The decision to continue forward despite discomfort defines character. Resilience also benefits from balanced living. Adequate rest, physical movement, and healthy nutrition maintain the body that supports mental effort. A neglected body weakens the mind because fatigue reduces patience and clarity. Caring for physical health strengthens the foundation on which mental discipline operates. Over time, the practice of planned challenges and steady reflection produces a profound shift in perspective. Problems are no longer seen as enemies, but as teachers. Difficult situations reveal strengths that might otherwise remain hidden. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to refine patience, courage, and judgment. The resilient mind does not expect life to become easy. Instead, it becomes capable of meeting life as it unfolds. Calm replaces panic. Thought replaces reaction. Effort replaces avoidance. This transformation happens slowly through repeated practice rather than sudden revelation. Every day offers opportunities to train resilience. A difficult conversation, a demanding task, a moment of unexpected frustration. Each situation invites a deliberate response. When approached with awareness, these moments become exercises that strengthen character. Continue selecting small challenges that stretch personal limits. Continue reflecting honestly after each experience. Over time, the mind learns that discomfort is temporary and growth is permanent. This understanding forms the foundation of lasting resilience. A disciplined mind, shaped through challenge and reflection, becomes steady in the face of uncertainty. It remains focused when circumstances become difficult. It moves forward with patience and clarity. Through consistent effort, resilience becomes not just a skill, but a permanent part of identity. Chapter 6. Master time with prioritized tasks and strict focus windows. Time moves forward without negotiation. Every person receives the same 24 hours each day. Yet the difference between an unproductive life and a disciplined one often comes down to how those hours are directed. Many people believe they lack time, but in truth they often lack structure. When time is not guided with clear intention, it slips away through small distractions, unfinished tasks, and constant switching between activities. Mastering time begins by accepting a simple reality. Time cannot be controlled, but attention can be directed. The mind performs best when it knows exactly what deserves attention. Without priorities, every task feels equally important, and when everything appears urgent, the mind becomes overwhelmed. A disciplined person avoids this confusion by choosing a small number of important tasks that truly deserve energy. These tasks become the center of the day. Begin by identifying the work that produces the greatest long-term value. Some tasks move life forward in meaningful ways, while others only create the feeling of activity. Writing an important report, studying a difficult concept, practicing a valuable skill, or solving a complex problem often require deep attention. These tasks demand focus and should receive the strongest portion of daily energy. List these important responsibilities clearly. Instead of writing a long collection of tasks that compete for attention, narrow the list to 3 meaningful objectives. 3 priorities create clarity. The mind can hold them easily and direct effort toward them without confusion. When these priorities are completed, the day already becomes successful regardless of smaller tasks. Once priorities are defined, the next step is protecting time for them. Protection comes through focus windows. A focus window is a specific period during which attention is directed toward one meaningful task without interruption. During this time, the mind commits fully to the work at hand. A focus window does not need to be extremely long to be effective. Many people find that periods between 40 minutes and 90 minutes allow strong concentration without exhaustion. The key principle is exclusivity. During the focus window, no other task competes for attention. Messages remain unanswered. Notifications remain silent. External noise is reduced as much as possible. This period becomes a contract with oneself. The contract is simple. For the next block of time, attention will remain with the chosen task. Even if progress feels slow, the mind stays present. This agreement teaches the brain to remain steady rather than constantly searching for novelty. Before beginning a focus window, prepare the environment carefully. Place only the materials necessary for the task within reach. Remove anything that invites distraction. Close unnecessary applications on the computer. Silence digital alerts. A clear environment supports a clear mind. Another helpful strategy is defining the first small action before the focus window begins. Instead of sitting down and wondering where to start, identify the exact opening step. Perhaps it is reading the next section of a document, writing the first paragraph of an article, or solving the first problem in a series. This immediate action removes hesitation and creates momentum. Once the window begins, the mind may still attempt to wander. Thoughts about unrelated tasks may appear. The phone may seem tempting. Instead of reacting immediately, simply acknowledge the distraction and return attention to the work. This quiet redirection is part of the training process. Each return strengthens focus. During longer work periods, brief recovery breaks become valuable. After a focus window ends, allow the mind a few minutes of rest. Stand up and stretch. Walk slowly for a moment. Drink water or breathe deeply. These short breaks refresh mental energy without dissolving the structure of the day. After the break, another focus window can begin. Over time, this rhythm of concentrated work, followed by short recovery, becomes a powerful system. Productivity increases not because more hours are worked, but because the hours are used with deeper attention. A critical aspect of time mastery is learning when to say no. Many people lose control of their schedules because they accept every request placed before them. Each commitment consumes time that cannot be recovered. A disciplined individual examines requests carefully before agreeing. Ask a simple question before accepting new tasks. Does this responsibility support the important priorities already chosen? If the answer is no, declining the request protects time for meaningful work. This decision requires courage but strengthens long-term progress. Time mastery also involves recognizing the difference between urgent and important tasks. Urgent tasks demand immediate attention because of deadlines or external pressure. Important tasks contribute to long-term goals and personal development. The problem arises when urgent but unimportant work dominates the schedule. A disciplined schedule ensures that important tasks receive attention early in the day when mental energy is highest. When the most valuable work is completed first, the remaining hours can handle smaller responsibilities without anxiety. Planning the day the night before can also improve focus. Before sleeping, review the next day and identify the 3 main priorities. Schedule the first focus window early if possible. This preparation allows the mind to wake with direction rather than confusion. Tracking time usage can reveal hidden patterns of distraction. Spend several days observing how time is actually spent. Many people discover that small interruptions accumulate into hours of lost productivity. Awareness of these patterns allows correction. For example, constant checking of messages may appear harmless, yet it breaks concentration repeatedly. Each interruption forces the brain to restart its thinking process. By grouping communication tasks into designated periods, these interruptions disappear and attention becomes stronger. Energy management also influences time mastery. Focus depends on physical and mental energy. Proper sleep, balanced nutrition, and regular movement support sustained concentration. Ignoring these factors weakens productivity regardless of scheduling methods. Another valuable habit is closing the workday with a short review. Examine what was accomplished during the day. Identify which focus windows produced the strongest results. Notice where distractions appeared. This reflection improves the next day's planning. Consistency is more important than intensity. Many individuals attempt extreme productivity for a few days and then collapse from exhaustion. A steady rhythm of prioritized work and focus windows builds reliable progress without burnout. Over time, the brain begins to associate focus windows with deep concentration. When the designated time begins, the mind automatically prepares for serious work. This conditioning reduces resistance and increases efficiency. The greatest reward of mastering time is not simply completing more tasks. The deeper benefit is the feeling of control. Instead of reacting to every demand, the individual chooses where attention goes. This sense of direction brings calm confidence. Life will always contain unpredictable events. Emergencies and unexpected responsibilities may interrupt the schedule. Flexibility remains necessary. However, even during chaotic periods, the principle of prioritized focus can guide decisions. When conditions settle, the structure quickly restores productivity. The disciplined use of time also strengthens self-respect. Each completed focus window represents a promise kept. The mind learns that commitments made internally will be honored through action. This reliability builds trust with oneself. Trust in personal discipline becomes a powerful source of motivation. When the mind believes that effort will be followed by completion, it becomes more willing to begin difficult tasks. Confidence replaces hesitation. Day by day, the habit of prioritizing tasks and protecting focus windows transforms the relationship with time. Instead of feeling rushed or overwhelmed, the individual experiences purposeful movement toward meaningful goals. Time remains limited for everyone, yet the person who directs attention wisely extracts far more value from each hour. Through clear priorities, steady focus, and consistent practice, time becomes an ally rather than an enemy. A disciplined mind understands that progress does not require endless activity. It requires concentrated effort applied to the right tasks. When attention is protected and work is organized into focused periods, the day unfolds with clarity and strength. Chapter 7. Strengthen willpower by tracking wins and rewarding consistent effort. Willpower is like a muscle that grows stronger when exercised intentionally rather than sporadically. Many people believe motivation alone will sustain action, yet motivation is fleeting and unreliable. The real power lies in consistent practice supported by systems that measure progress and provide feedback. Strengthening willpower requires awareness of behavior, deliberate choices, and reinforcement through tangible acknowledgement of achievements. Without visible evidence of effort and results, the mind struggles to remain committed to long-term goals. Begin by tracking every meaningful action that aligns with the goals being pursued. Recording wins is not about vanity but about clarity. Each small victory, whether completing a task, resisting a temptation, or maintaining a routine, represents an investment in personal discipline. When actions are documented, the mind sees cumulative progress and gains confidence in its own capacity to sustain effort. Use a simple journal, checklist, or digital tool to log accomplishments. The key is consistency. The method matters less than the act of recording itself. The act of tracking creates accountability. The brain responds to visible patterns of behavior. When an achievement is recorded, the mind recognizes that effort produces measurable results. This recognition encourages repetition and reduces the likelihood of giving in to impulses that derail progress. Wins do not need to be grand. Even small successes reinforce the neural pathways associated with persistence. Over time, the mind begins to anticipate satisfaction from completing tasks rather than from avoiding them. Rewarding effort amplifies willpower by creating positive feedback loops. Rewards should be deliberate and proportional to the effort invested. They do not have to be extravagant. A brief pause, a favorite activity, or a small treat can serve as acknowledgement that effort is valued. The purpose is to associate self-discipline with positive emotion. When the brain links effort to reward, compliance becomes easier and consistent action more sustainable. Develop a system where daily, weekly, and monthly achievements are visible. Daily tracking captures immediate wins, weekly summaries highlight patterns, and monthly overviews show cumulative growth. This structure makes progress tangible and prevents the mind from discounting small actions as insignificant. Observing growth reinforces identity as someone who follows through. Pair tracking and reward with specific, clear targets. Vague goals weaken the feedback mechanism because success cannot be measured reliably. When targets are defined, the mind recognizes exactly what constitutes a win. Completing a specific task, hitting a precise milestone, or practicing a skill for a defined period becomes concrete proof of effort. Clear goals make rewards more meaningful and strengthen the association between action and positive outcomes. Start small to avoid overwhelming the mind. Willpower is depleted when challenges exceed current capacity. Begin with manageable actions and gradually increase difficulty. Each completed step builds confidence and reinforces the habit of self-control. Incremental progress ensures that effort remains achievable and that tracking remains accurate. Reflection is essential for strengthening willpower. After recording wins, take a moment to review actions. Identify patterns where resistance was strongest and examine strategies that allowed continuation despite temptation. Understanding these patterns transforms raw effort into knowledge about personal behavior. Each insight increases the efficiency of future willpower exercises. Consistency is more valuable than intensity. Sporadic displays of willpower may feel impressive but rarely produce lasting change. Daily repetition, even in small increments, compounds over time. The mind becomes accustomed to self-discipline, reducing friction in executing challenging tasks. Tracking these repeated actions reveals momentum and encourages persistence. Combine tracking with public or shared accountability when appropriate. Sharing progress with a trusted friend or mentor reinforces the habit of follow-through. The awareness that someone else observes effort heightens commitment and reduces the likelihood of skipping necessary actions. Accountability amplifies the natural effect of tracking by adding social reinforcement. Anticipate setbacks without discouragement. Willpower is tested most during periods of temptation or stress. When lapses occur, record them without judgment and note the circumstances that led to the deviation. Use these observations to adjust strategies and prevent repeated failure. The purpose of tracking is learning, not punishment. Over time, understanding failures strengthens overall self-control. Celebrate cumulative wins at regular intervals. Recognize not only single tasks, but the aggregation of consistent effort. When patterns of achievement become evident, take deliberate time to acknowledge the growth. This reinforces the identity of being disciplined and creates a psychological momentum that strengthens future performance. Pair reward with reflection on intrinsic value. Effort becomes meaningful when it is linked to personal growth rather than external validation alone. Recognize that each disciplined choice shapes competence, confidence, and character. The reward system functions both externally, with small tangible rewards, and internally, with recognition of personal development. This dual feedback ensures resilience when external incentives are unavailable. Integrate tracking into existing routines to make the habit effortless. Log actions immediately after completion rather than at the end of the day. Immediate recording ensures accuracy and prevents the mind from discounting small wins that might otherwise be forgotten. Quick, habitual logging reduces friction and strengthens the overall system. Experiment with challenges designed to stretch willpower. Intentionally resist small temptations or undertake difficult tasks that test persistence. Record both success and failure. Over time, exposure to controlled challenges increases tolerance for discomfort, reinforcing mental strength. The combination of tracking, reflection, and reward creates a controlled environment for willpower training. Use quantitative and qualitative measures together. Numbers provide clarity, but narrative insight deepens understanding. Document not only what was accomplished, but also how the mind responded during effort. Observing mental and emotional reactions allows for refinement of strategies, reducing wasted energy on ineffective approaches. Develop rituals that reinforce commitment to effort. A consistent start, such as reviewing tasks before beginning or affirming intentions, signals the brain to engage. Rituals minimize decision fatigue and increase consistency in action. When the brain recognizes familiar patterns, effort feels less burdensome and execution becomes smoother. Gradually increase the complexity and duration of tracked actions. Begin with small wins and progressively undertake more demanding tasks. Each successful step reinforces confidence and provides data to optimize future challenges. The gradual scaling ensures that willpower expands steadily without causing burnout. Recognize that reward and tracking are intertwined. Rewards reinforce the value of tracked actions, while tracking provides evidence that rewards are justified. Separating these elements diminishes their impact. Combined, they create a self-sustaining cycle where effort becomes habitual and willpower continuously strengthens. Finally, cultivate patience with the process. Strengthening willpower is not instantaneous. It develops through repeated, measured effort accompanied by reflection and acknowledgement. Every documented win, every calculated reward, and every honest observation contributes to a cumulative transformation of discipline. Over time, the practice of tracking wins and rewarding consistent effort turns willpower into a reliable and enduring force that shapes behavior, strengthens character, and propels long-term success. Chapter 80: Design routines that automate success and reduce decision fatigue. Routines are the invisible architecture of a disciplined life, silently shaping behavior without constant effort. When daily decisions are left to chance, the mind becomes exhausted from continual choice-making, reducing the capacity to act with purpose. Decision fatigue occurs when even small choices, what to eat, what to wear, which task to begin, accumulate until the mind struggles to prioritize meaningful action. Designing routines allows the brain to automate consistent behaviors, freeing energy for higher level thinking and strategic effort. Automation of success is not about removing flexibility entirely, but about creating structures that guide action with minimal cognitive load. Begin by identifying key behaviors that contribute most to desired outcomes. These are the actions that, if performed consistently, produce measurable progress toward goals. They might include exercise, focused work sessions, reading skill practice, or consistent communication with accountability partners. Once identified, determine the most practical time and sequence for each behavior. Scheduling these actions at predictable intervals reduces the mental effort required to decide when and how to act. Consistency over weeks transforms these behaviors from conscious effort into automatic habits. Start small by establishing routines for the morning and evening. The beginning and end of the day set the tone for mental focus, productivity, and reflection. Morning routines can include waking at a consistent time, performing a brief period of movement, engaging in focused work, or reviewing priorities for the day. Evening routines can incorporate reflection, journaling, preparation for the following day, and deliberate relaxation. These routines act as anchors, signaling to the mind that structured action is expected and reducing indecision at critical points. Group similar tasks together to create flow and minimize interruptions. For example, batch communication by responding to emails or messages during designated periods rather than sporadically throughout the day. Grouping related tasks reduces the mental cost of switching between unrelated activities and allows for deeper concentration. The brain functions most efficiently when attention remains within a coherent context for extended periods. Use visual cues to reinforce routines. Setting up the physical environment so that essential items are in place signals the brain to begin specific actions automatically. For example, placing workout clothes next to the bed, keeping journals and pens in a designated spot, or preparing work materials in advance reduces resistance to initiating tasks. The environment itself becomes a silent guide, supporting the habitual execution of behaviors. Integrate triggers and cues that prompt routine behaviors. These can be time-based, such as starting a work session at a specific hour, or action-based, like reviewing goals immediately after breakfast. Triggers reduce reliance on memory and willpower, signaling the mind that a particular task is expected. Over time, the brain begins to anticipate these actions, making them nearly effortless. Eliminate unnecessary choices wherever possible. Clothing, meals, and even minor daily decisions can be standardized to conserve mental energy. When fewer decisions compete for attention, more cognitive capacity remains for high-priority tasks. Many high-performing individuals follow predictable patterns in areas that do not require creative thinking, reserving flexibility for decisions that truly matter. Combine accountability with routines to strengthen adherence. When a routine is paired with a system of monitoring or social expectation, the likelihood of consistent execution increases. Tracking adherence, sharing progress with a mentor, or checking off completed actions reinforces commitment. The feedback loop strengthens the automaticity of the routine, embedding the behavior into daily life. Introduce flexibility strategically without undermining consistency. Rigid routines can create stress when unexpected events occur. Allow predefined variations or contingency options to accommodate change while maintaining the core structure. This approach ensures that routines serve as supportive frameworks rather than restrictive obligations. Regularly review and refine routines to maximize efficiency. Not all habits yield equal results, and periodic assessment ensures that the time invested produces meaningful outcomes. Eliminate or adjust behaviors that no longer serve the intended purpose, and introduce new actions that enhance productivity or growth. Reflection ensures that routines evolve alongside changing goals and circumstances. Routines can also incorporate deliberate practice for skill improvement. Scheduling focused periods for skill development ensures steady advancement without relying on fluctuating motivation. Break practice into consistent increments, allowing the brain to adapt gradually. Automatic inclusion of growth-oriented actions in daily life ensures long-term improvement without requiring constant willpower. Reduce decision fatigue by pre-planning meals, attire, and work sequences for the day. Planning in advance removes the mental burden of frequent minor choices. When basic logistics are settled, the mind can devote more energy to complex problems and high-impact tasks. Preparation transforms potential stressors into predictable elements of the routine. Leverage technology to reinforce routines without creating distraction. Alarms, reminders, and calendar events can cue behaviors and provide gentle prompts for adherence. Automating these signals ensures that routines are not dependent solely on memory or self-discipline. The key is to use technology as a supporting tool rather than a source of constant interruption. Pair rewards with routine completion to strengthen habit formation. Even small acknowledgements of consistency, like checking off a task or taking a brief pause, reinforce the value of performing the action. Positive feedback builds momentum, making it increasingly natural to maintain the routine over time. Rewards need not be external or elaborate. The recognition of effort itself often suffices. Sequence routines to align with natural energy cycles. Perform mentally demanding tasks during peak focus periods and schedule simpler activities during lower energy phases. This alignment enhances effectiveness while minimizing strain. Understanding personal rhythms allows routines to operate in harmony with natural cognitive and physical capacity. Incorporate reflection into routines to solidify learning and improvement. A brief end-of-day review of completed actions, challenges faced, and lessons learned strengthens the mind's ability to assess progress and adjust strategies. Routine reflection ensures that habits are purposeful rather than mechanical, connecting daily action to larger goals and values. Gradually expand routines to include broader aspects of life, such as relationships, creativity, and health. Automating behaviors in multiple domains reduces friction and creates an integrated system of consistent action. Over time, daily life becomes organized around predictable, productive patterns that reduce stress and amplify results. Teach the mind to anticipate routine behaviors. Repetition establishes mental expectation, so starting a habitual task becomes instinctive. The anticipation of a familiar action reduces procrastination and hesitation. The more predictable a routine, the less cognitive effort is required to initiate it. Use micro-routines for transition periods. Short, consistent actions between major tasks, like deep breathing, brief movement, or note review, signal the mind to shift focus. Micro-routines reduce wasted mental energy during transitions and maintain momentum throughout the day. They bridge the gap between activities and maintain consistency without requiring extensive planning. Prioritize routines that have compounding benefits. Actions that produce cascading effects, such as exercise, learning, or skill practice, multiply their impact over time. Embedding these behaviors in daily life ensures continuous improvement with minimal decision-making effort. The accumulation of small, automated actions leads to significant long-term results. Monitor adherence and adjust difficulty as needed. If a routine becomes too easy, increase the challenge to maintain engagement and growth. If obstacles interfere, simplify the routine temporarily without abandoning the core structure. Maintaining balance between challenge and feasibility ensures that routines remain effective rather than burdensome. Recognize that routines are not a restriction but a liberation. By automating essential actions and reducing decisions, the mind is freed for creativity, problem-solving, and strategic thinking. The predictability of routine creates mental space to focus on priorities that require conscious effort. This balance between automation and deliberate action maximizes productivity and life satisfaction. Over time, disciplined routines generate self-trust. When behaviors are repeated consistently and tracked effectively, the mind develops confidence in its ability to follow through. This trust strengthens identity and reinforces the capacity to act intentionally in both daily and extraordinary circumstances. Routines, when designed thoughtfully, create a framework that sustains long-term success. By automating essential actions, reducing decision fatigue, and embedding reflection and reward, daily life becomes predictable, purposeful, and productive. With consistent practice, the structured repetition of beneficial behaviors transforms small efforts into lasting achievement, building a life where action flows naturally and results accumulate reliably. Chapter 19 develops supportive relationships that encourage accountability and growth. The people around a person shape the mindset, habits, and energy available for daily action. Many individuals underestimate the influence of relationships, yet supportive connections can accelerate growth, while negative or indifferent relationships drain motivation. Building a network that encourages accountability and personal development requires conscious effort, reflection, and careful selection of who receives attention. Every interaction carries potential to strengthen or weaken discipline, confidence, and resilience. Choosing the right circle is one of the most practical steps toward consistent improvement. Begin by assessing current relationships and their impact on goals. Observe who consistently inspires action, reinforces positive habits, and provides constructive feedback. Equally, notice who fosters procrastination, excuses, or doubt. Awareness is the first step because people who appear supportive on the surface may subtly undermine growth through skepticism or low expectations. Aligning with individuals who genuinely want to see improvement transforms ordinary effort into accelerated progress. Accountability is a cornerstone of supportive relationships. Sharing goals with someone who asks for regular updates creates external motivation to follow through. This external expectation often bridges the gap when internal discipline wanes. Knowing that another person observes commitment adds pressure and consistency that the individual alone may struggle to maintain. Regular check-ins, honest reporting of progress, and mutual encouragement strengthen the habit of accountability. Growth-oriented relationships also require reciprocity. Offering support and constructive feedback in return creates balance and fosters mutual benefit. Engagement should not be one-sided. When each person contributes to the other's development, trust and respect deepen. Reciprocity ensures that accountability does not become a burden, but a shared effort toward improvement. Seek mentors and peers who exemplify qualities to be developed. Individuals who have mastered focus, resilience, or discipline provide models for behavior. Observing their habits, decision-making, and strategies gives concrete guidance. Mentorship offers insight that cannot be gained through isolated effort, accelerating learning while reducing trial and error setbacks. Constructive feedback is essential in growth-focused relationships. People who provide honest, specific observations about performance highlight blind spots and areas for improvement. Feedback should be received without defensiveness, interpreted as a tool rather than judgment. Listening attentively and acting on practical guidance enhances skill development, productivity, and self-awareness. Choose relationships with clarity of purpose. Casual or emotionally draining connections often consume energy without producing value. Setting boundaries around time and energy preserves focus on meaningful interactions. The goal is not to isolate, but to prioritize relationships that contribute to accountability and personal growth. Limiting exposure to unhelpful interactions frees mental capacity for disciplined action. Regular communication reinforces supportive bonds. Scheduling consistent conversations, check-ins, or collaborative sessions maintains momentum. Sporadic contact weakens accountability and allows inertia to creep in. Consistency in connection mirrors the consistency required for personal discipline, creating alignment between external engagement and internal habits. Shared goals amplify growth. Surrounding oneself with individuals who pursue similar objectives fosters collaboration, inspiration, and healthy competition. When peers strive for improvement, their progress motivates others to match or exceed their efforts. Mutual aspiration generates an environment where effort is normalized and persistence becomes collective rather than solitary. Emotional support also strengthens resilience. Challenges, setbacks, and failures are inevitable. Supportive relationships provide perspective, encouragement, and reassurance during these times. They prevent discouragement from becoming permanent stagnation, reminding the individual that effort and persistence are meaningful even amid difficulty. Select individuals who encourage self-reflection. Conversations that probe reasoning, decisions, and responses cultivate awareness and critical thinking. Partners in growth should challenge assumptions respectfully and prompt examination of behavior patterns. Reflection guided by others accelerates understanding of personal strengths and weaknesses. Boundaries maintain the health of supportive relationships. Excessive reliance or emotional enmeshment undermines autonomy. While accountability is valuable, individuals must retain ownership of choices and actions. Relationships serve as guidance, motivation, and reflection tools, not substitutes for personal responsibility. Introduce structure into accountability. Use measurable objectives, scheduled check-ins, or documented progress to make relationships action-oriented rather than purely conversational. Concrete structure ensures that engagement produces tangible results and sustains the momentum of growth over time. Recognize the difference between motivation and discipline in relationships. Some people provide temporary enthusiasm without reinforcing consistent effort. Growth-focused connections emphasize steady practice, completion of tasks, and incremental improvement rather than emotional highs alone. Aligning with disciplined individuals teaches habits more effectively than short-lived inspiration. Conflict may arise even in supportive relationships. Disagreements over methods, priorities, or expectations are natural. Approach these conflicts with openness and a focus on solutions rather than emotional reaction. Navigating disagreements skillfully enhances resilience and strengthens bonds that are built on mutual respect and shared purpose. Observe patterns of influence. Individuals unconsciously absorb habits, attitudes, and energy from their closest associates. Positive influences reinforce persistence, focus, and constructive action, while negative influences amplify procrastination, doubt, and distraction. Mindful selection of companions ensures that environmental factors support rather than undermine personal discipline. Encourage and celebrate each other's wins. Acknowledgement of progress strengthens commitment and reinforces the value of effort. Celebrating small and large victories creates an environment of shared motivation, reducing the tendency to overlook achievements or lose sight of cumulative growth. Positive reinforcement sustains consistency and fosters a culture of accountability. Distance from toxic relationships is equally critical. Individuals who consistently drain energy, encourage excuses, or instill fear impede development. Reducing exposure to such interactions prevents erosion of focus, willpower, and confidence. Protecting mental and emotional space ensures that energy is directed toward productive and supportive engagements. Integrate joint activities that reinforce growth habits. Collaborative work sessions, shared challenges, or skill-building exercises enhance commitment and increase practical application of discipline. Cooperative engagement provides both accountability and social reinforcement, making effort less solitary and more sustainable. Recognize that growth-focused relationships require effort, connection, communication, and constructive feedback take intentionality. Passive association produces limited benefit. Deliberate cultivation ensures that interactions remain aligned with long-term goals rather than drifting into distraction or complacency. Finally, the impact of supportive relationships extends beyond motivation. They shape identity, habits, and resilience. Engaging consistently with individuals who encourage accountability and growth creates an environment where effort is normalized, progress is tracked, and challenges are met with guidance. Over time, these relationships act as a multiplier, amplifying personal discipline, sharpening focus, and strengthening the capacity to pursue meaningful goals without hesitation. Consistent, well-chosen connections become a foundation for lasting success and self-mastery. Chapter Hansi sustain momentum through weekly review, reflection, and intentional adjustments. Momentum is the result of consistent effort applied over time, and sustaining it requires deliberate attention rather than hope or luck. Without reflection, even the most disciplined work can drift off course. Weekly review is a method of examining progress, identifying patterns, and adjusting strategies to ensure continuous forward movement. This practice transforms effort into results and prevents wasted energy on ineffective actions. Reflection is not an abstract exercise, it is a practical tool to maintain focus, reinforce accountability, and sharpen decision-making. Begin by setting aside dedicated time each week solely for review. This period should be free from interruptions and distractions. Treat it as a non-negotiable appointment with yourself. Consistency in timing ensures that reflection becomes habitual and integrated into the rhythm of life. Use this session to examine accomplishments, challenges, and areas that require improvement. Observation without judgment allows clarity in identifying where energy is being spent wisely and where it is being squandered. During the review, start by listing all tasks and goals attempted during the week. Document what was completed successfully, what remained unfinished, and what required more effort than anticipated. Seeing actions in writing provides perspective on productivity and effort. This record becomes the foundation for understanding patterns and trends, revealing which strategies work and which do not. Analyze the causes behind successes. Understanding why certain efforts produce strong results helps replicate them in future weeks. Perhaps a specific focus technique, environmental adjustment, or timing strategy contributed to completion. Recognizing effective methods reinforces positive behavior and allows for intentional repetition. When patterns of success are understood, replicating them becomes automatic rather than random. Examine challenges and obstacles encountered during the week. Identify whether setbacks were caused by external factors, insufficient planning, or lapses in focus and discipline. By dissecting failures carefully, the mind develops insight into vulnerabilities. Understanding these weaknesses transforms mistakes into practical lessons rather than sources of frustration. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to strengthen habits and resilience. Set measurable objectives for the following week based on insights gained. Weekly review is incomplete without action-oriented adjustments. Decide which behaviors to maintain, which to modify, and which to eliminate. Define clear, achievable targets that provide both direction and motivation. Setting these objectives ensures that momentum is not lost and that energy continues to flow toward meaningful progress. Track key metrics that indicate growth and performance. These metrics can vary based on personal goals, but should be concrete and observable. Examples include number of productive focus hours, completed tasks, physical activity, or skill practice milestones. Metrics provide clarity and remove ambiguity about whether the week was effective. Concrete data reinforces accountability and reduces reliance on memory or subjective judgment. Use reflection to plan improvements in routines and habits. Identify which behaviors support consistent progress and which habits introduce friction or distraction. Adjust routines intentionally to maximize efficiency and reduce resistance. Small, purposeful changes compound over time, creating smoother execution and stronger momentum in the long term. Include evaluation of emotional and mental state. Consider how focus, energy, and motivation fluctuated throughout the week. Understanding mental patterns allows for strategic planning that accommodates natural rhythms. Adjusting workload and task sequence according to energy levels ensures sustained effort without burnout. Awareness of emotional trends strengthens self-management and informs future decisions. Incorporate a gratitude or acknowledgement component during review. Recognize achievements, resilience, and effort invested, even in areas that fell short of perfect completion. Positive reinforcement fosters motivation, maintains morale, and reinforces a growth mindset. Celebrating effort encourages consistency and reinforces the identity of a disciplined and reflective individual. Identify recurring distractions and develop strategies to mitigate them. Patterns of wasted energy often emerge when reflection is systematic. Solutions might include environmental adjustments, new scheduling methods, or limits on low-value activities. Addressing these obstacles proactively prevents future derailment and reinforces commitment to productive action. Integrate lessons from review into the upcoming week's planning. Adjust focus windows, routines, and priorities according to what was most effective. Reflection without implementation is ineffective. Intentional adjustments ensure that each week builds upon the previous one rather than repeating the same errors. Momentum is maintained by evolving strategies, not static repetition. Evaluate progress toward long-term goals. Weekly reflection connects daily and weekly actions to broader objectives. Consider whether accumulated progress aligns with desired outcomes. When gaps appear, adjust strategies to realign with long-term vision. Continuous evaluation ensures that effort contributes meaningfully rather than merely producing business. Use the review process to reinforce accountability systems. Confirm whether commitments to mentors, peers, or personal milestones were met. Identify gaps in accountability and determine corrective action. Reinforcing accountability during reflection strengthens follow-through and enhances consistency across weeks. Reflect on skill development and knowledge acquisition. Consider areas where learning advanced and areas needing further practice. Document insights and plan deliberate skill-building exercises for the coming week. Systematic reflection transforms random practice into structured growth, making momentum in personal development tangible. Plan for potential challenges in advance. Anticipate distractions, high-stress periods, or unexpected responsibilities. Preparing for obstacles in the weekly review reduces the likelihood of being derailed. Forethought allows strategies to be implemented proactively rather than reactively. Maintaining flow and consistency of action. Maintain simplicity in review to avoid overwhelm. Focus on the most impactful insights rather than attempting to analyze every detail. Clear, concise reflection is more actionable and encourages completion. Overcomplicating review can undermine momentum by creating unnecessary mental friction. Regularly refine the review process itself. Evaluate whether the method captures relevant information, provides clarity, and produces actionable adjustments. Adjust the approach as necessary to ensure it remains a tool for growth rather than a routine that becomes mechanical or superficial. Continuous improvement applies not only to tasks but also to the method of reflection. Consider collaboration in reflection when appropriate. Sharing observations with mentors, peers, or accountability partners provides external perspective. Input from others can reveal blind spots and offer practical suggestions for improvement. Collaborative reflection strengthens understanding and reinforces commitment to growth. Track emotional resilience alongside performance. Notice moments of stress, frustration, or fatigue and identify coping strategies that were effective. Recognizing successful management of challenges reinforces mental strength and ensures momentum continues even under pressure. Reflection enhances not just productivity, but the capacity to endure and persist. End each weekly review by defining a focused intention for the upcoming week. This intention acts as a guiding principle, aligning all actions with purpose. Clear intention prevents aimless effort and anchors momentum, ensuring that consistent action produces meaningful outcomes. Over time, the habit of weekly review and intentional adjustment creates a self-reinforcing cycle. Each reflection clarifies priorities, each adjustment improves strategy, and each completed task strengthens confidence. Momentum is no longer dependent on fleeting motivation, but becomes the natural consequence of disciplined observation and deliberate action. Through consistent weekly review, reflection, and adjustment, the individual gains control over progress, prevents stagnation, and cultivates a life of purposeful, continuous improvement. The process ensures that effort accumulates, learning compounds, and growth is sustained. Momentum becomes an enduring force rather than a fragile byproduct, driving consistent achievement and long-term success.